Night kicks off the start of the Brannon Braga era, and I will give him props for this. We start with Captain Proton, and imagine that! Science fiction in our science fiction show. It's almost as if it caters to the show's audience instead of those who are wishing they were watching something else. The bad guy, Chaotica, has already captured Harry and the damsel in distress. Harry's the one who looks like being tied up is just another day at the office. But that might be because he knows that the self-destruct button has already been pushed, and also that Tom is on the way in the guise of the titular Captain Proton. This is his program, in case the bosom of the damsel didn't give that away. But the fun is interrupted by the Doctor, who wants to use the holodeck, and Tom and Harry are tying it up with their Captain Cody shtick. They get into an argument and nearly break the thing. Seems this is just one symptom of the overall problem. They're in a big void, just a massive absence of substance that goes on seemingly without end. Kind of reminds me of a certain show. Seven explains this void is 2,500 light-years across, with no star systems of any kind. Plus there's some kind of radiation that blocks light from beyond the void, so it's just an endless pitch-black sea. After the titles, that's pretty much all that they're talking about, trying to find a way to spend 2 years crossing the galaxy's asshole without running out of supplies or going insane.
Crew morale deteriorating, obviously.
I have a few suggestions that might boost people's spirits.
As if their lives couldn't get any worse, now he's about to inflict his help upon them. Neelix thinks rotating jobs would help, because nothing will help frayed nerves like having to teach someone else the basics of warp core maintenance so that they're not all vaporized. He suggests turning Cargo Bay 2 into a third holodeck, although Cargo Bay 2 is also where Seven sleeps, so that would be kind of annoying. Then again, it's been noted that there are so many inconsistencies with Cargo Bay 2, it's to the point that even Memory Alpha says the writers just weren't paying attention. Now personally, I have a very simple explanation. Janeway, in a moment of boredom, decided to see if she could name all of them Cargo Bay 2, succeeded, but wasn't able to reset it, so they're stuck with this now. No, you were supposed to send this to Cargo Bay 2, not Cargo Bay 2, what's wrong with you? Naturally, such confusion would eventually lead to a fight breaking out, giving Janeway all the more incentive not to fix this. But anyway, there's concern that Janeway seems to be hiding from the crew.
Maybe we've got the wrong attitude. Let's think of this as a 2-year vacation.
Damned if I know why she'd want to stay away from them. We soon see Neelix wake up in a panic, perhaps with the realization that he is Neelix, the horror. Up in the mess hall, Tom and Torres are playing a game that quickly degenerates into an argument, and shockingly, it's not Scrabble. I'm telling you, Zax is a tool used by someone who works with Slate. Educate yourself. They start fighting so much that Neelix steps in and tries to get them to set the example as senior officers, and then has to be carted off to sickbay on account of hyperventilating.
It should control the urge to hyperventilate and alleviate some of your anxiety.
Anxiety? Anxiety is what I feel when I burn a pot roast.
No, anxiety is what we feel when you claim you haven't burned a pot roast. After the doctor gives him the treatment for nylophobia, a sedative and you'll just get used to it, we discover Tuvok meditating in astrometrics, the only place where there are stars and privacy. He finishes just as Seven shows up, and just when more radiation is picked up on the sensors. Dangerous radiation. Oh, well, why don't we go look at it? We are bored, after all. Chakotay takes this to Janeway, who is one cape away from becoming Phantom of the Opera, but decides to alter course and check this thing out. But she won't be coaxed into leaving her quarters. She's become a wee bit bummed out. Leaving all jokes aside, the episode kicks off the season with the bold choice of having Janeway suddenly no longer convinced that she'd been doing the right thing. The choice to use the void for the mechanism here is probably inspired, directly or indirectly, by the famous quote of Nietzsche, "If you gaze for long into an abyss, the abyss gazes also into you." Janeway has had nothing to do but stare into the abyss, and in so doing has been forced to look back upon herself, to question herself. Her lamentations to Chakotay are all about wanting distractions so she doesn't have to think, because without distractions, she has to sit in a room with herself. And we've seen many times Janeway considers herself poor company. She thinks her decision to destroy the array back in Caretaker was the wrong move. It's caused all of this.
I made that choice for everyone.
We're alive and well.
Except for everybody who's dead. One of the Maquis that you led into battle and came to this ship because he trusted you, Chakotay, was not only killed, he was eaten alive, and his remains are currently in a box in a dinosaur's Area 51. Of all the platitudes, that's a crazy Janeway line right there. Look on the bright side. I'm alive, and hell, even some of you too are alive. That's a bonus. Well, not really a bonus, so much as an optional extra. Point is, the dead people aren't complaining, so I regret nothing. Meanwhile, someone even more pathetic.
But I did finish writing my concerto. I call it Echoes of the Void. Got a minute?
Appears to be enjoying his vacation. You've been sitting all night staring into oblivion itself. Yeah, isn't it great? I should schedule my next shore leave here. While Harry's on duty, Tom has no choice but to bring in someone else to help him out. And since he's fighting with his girlfriend at the moment, he's going to bring along Seven to serve as the secretary, presumably the damsel from last time. Captain Proton likes to have his secretaries go a little heavy on the top quarks, if you know what I mean.
Yes. I am a nerd.
Seven is put in charge of distracting Satan's robot while Tom works on saving the world.
Surrender. Do not resist.
I am Borg.
Surrender.
The robot has been neutralized. May I leave now?
Oh, every dungeon master watching this just had the same sharp pain of seeing hours of work undone by one annoying player. Speaking of disruptions, while Harry is playing his new song for Tuvok because the man has become just that bored, the ship suddenly has power problems and drops out of warp. Oh man, you know what this means? We could all die. Finally, something to do!
Captain Proton to the rescue. Not exactly Starfleet issue.
Yeah, doesn't require you to point your whole frickin' arm at what you want to see. Imagine that. While they work on trying to sort out their situation, Chakotay stumbles across Neelix shivering in terror in a corner. Not unlike many people have learned what the surprise is in dishes that have that name. And speaking of surprises... Yeah, this trip's just getting better and better, isn't it? Maybe we should have taken the long way around instead of going through an area of space that is devoid of nothing except violent monsters. Let's not go waltzing into Cthulhu land and start bitching that we want something exciting to happen around here. Chakotay and Neelix stumble across one, but before it can attack, Captain Janeway shoots it. Well, considering that the fictional guns of the Captain Proton universe were able to take one down, naturally the phaser rifle shot to the kidney does nothing. It barely slows the guy down for a moment, and then he gets away. This is proof once again, if you want to have a good gun in Star Trek, get on the holodeck. Whether it's this, or The Big Goodbye, or First Contact, the proof is... a fictional gun beats a real gun in Star Trek every time. But yeah, all of this was enough to get Janeway out of her cave to join in getting full power back to the ship, so thanks for joining the party. Oh, and good timing, because Tuvok has just discovered that there are alien ships outside, and not friendly ones. Luckily, they're soon driven off by another freighter, an alien species called the Malon.
I had to fire 13 spatial charges to drive those ships off. I expect to be compensated.
We do not use money, but Harry can play his clarinet for you if you want. They beam him over to talk, and the guy is just letting off clouds of radiation like the Hulk after a gamma burrito. But the good news is that there's a spatial vortex this guy uses to skip right to the edge of the void. But he wants their prisoner, and he won't say why, which is a bit concerning. I mean, it'd be good to know what you're in for if you're trading a person, because it might just be for a nefarious end. They decide to check out said prisoner, who is in near darkness on account of being extremely sensitive to light. I know it, I've been saying it for years. We've got gremlins. Turns out the aliens are dying from the radiation the Malon gives off. That's why they're a bit tetchy. The alien apologizes for presuming that they were with the Malon, and he says that he'll tell the others that they're not poison-spewing assholes, just regular assholes. In private, though, Chakotay talks to Tuvok about his concerns about Janeway, and Tuvok has already deduced that Janeway is upset for stranding them in the Delta Quadrant. Tuvok explains that previously she'd endangered herself in the hopes of finding redemption for some of her crew that were severely injured on an away mission.
Captain Janeway's methods are unorthodox.
That's putting it mildly. To celebrate your promotion, I picked you up a nice gold chain, and the shackles are already attached. But no time for that. They've arrived at the coordinates the alien sent them, where he begs for their help before being transported away. So they return to the Malon captain and say that they're on to his little pollution game, but luckily there is an answer, a way to take the waste that he's getting rid of and turn it into a usable substance. It's kind of reminiscent of the new natural gas plants that capture the CO2 and have it then processed into useful materials. Basically, Voyager's already doing that kind of a thing, and they're willing to show the Malon captain how to do it.
Let's turn our sensors on that vortex. I want to know exactly how it works, just in case diplomacy fails.
Do you intend to destroy it?
You're still kind of new here, so I'll ignore the stupidity of that question. Yeah, it turns out the captain isn't interested. He was just hoping their claims were overblown, because he's in the waste transport business, so he's not receptive to something that eliminates waste and the need to transport it. So yeah, this Captain Planet villain is quickly sent on his way when he makes clear that he prefers poisonous radiation to a life without tumors. So Chakotay suggests they use the vortex to get back, contact the Malon authorities on what's happening, and then give them the technology to make the dumping obsolete. But Janeway is concerned that if they give them the tech, that it may be ignored by the man. So instead, they're going to destroy this vortex. But the problem is that it has to happen on this end of it, meaning 2 years of being stuck in this godforsaken place. Janeway doesn't want to put the crew through a caretaker-like situation all over again, so the plan will be to use a shuttle to target the opening and fire. Now, naturally, with Neelix having established at the beginning that they can create new holodecks in any room they choose by installing some emitters, all we have to do is install one on the shuttle to create a holographic pilot in order to do the job instead, thereby allowing Voyager to get back, and obviously I am just messing with you here. If we don't have delayed timers for our caretaker explosives, we sure as hell can't have some kind of automated targeting done by the shuttle. So Janeway will stay behind to pilot the shuttle and then limp through this space, confined alone in an area the size of a van for the next couple of years just to get out of the void. And you thought she was crazy before. Well, the crew won't follow her orders on this. Instead, they come up with a plan to pull this off and still head through the vortex. So off we go for the final act, our heroes engaging in battle with a garbage scow, and losing. Luckily, the local ships swoop in to attack, giving Voyager an opening, and they blow the Malon up, and then drop their torpedoes to blow up the opening of the vortex, just in case. They drop out a little early as a result of this, but not to worry. They soon cross the boundary, and the galaxy is visible once again, allowing Voyager to fly off into this wallpaper. The end. Post-episode follow-up. Stupid Neelix moment is the morale officer. Actually, just the fact he remains a morale officer should really be all I need to say. Final score for Night is 4 out of 10. The problem with trying to get across the fact that people are bored is that it's boring. Night fails to capitalize on many of its elements, such as getting us inside of Janeway's head, or feeling what the crew feels about the captain's absence. This is the kind of story that requires a less straightforward narrative structure to pull off what it wants to pull off, and the need to create a situation reminiscent of Caretaker leaves less room to pull it off. In addition, the episode is just riddled with undeveloped and small thinking. This is a space 2,500 light-years across. The Malon dumping can't affect the entire area, and there's no reason not to move because one big patch of nothing is no different than any other big patch of nothing. Or take the locals themselves, who have been here for millions of years, they say. Well, what do they survive on? How do they keep their ships maintained? What powers their ships? Yeah, they can draw energy from other ships, but how often does that happen? It might have been interesting to find out that the area that seems empty is actually existing in a state that is imperceptible to us, and everyone flying through here is like the clueless footsteps of giants. It's really a pity that Captain Proton was more engaging than this. Night just starts off this new area with a misstep, not by what it wants to explore here, but rather by its fumbling method of trying to explore it.